So about a year ago today, we decided that we were going to do a podcast. I mean, sometimes it takes time to manifest things, but I know that whenever you put your mind to something and you decide that you're going to do something, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. So today, episode 1, Coffee and Chess with my brother.
My daily chess, sharpen my swords. Especially if my brother ever decides that he wants to challenge me,
Yeah, I'm trash at that game, man.
Man, chess is life. Like, bruh, it would just take you a matter of putting what I just said together, and you would be a fucking grandmaster in chess because the way that you play life. It's literally like, if I could just calm down for a minute and realize that each problem at hand is a chess problem, and I could figure it out. When you play chess, and like, if I could get under your skin and make you really mad, you would play chess really bad. If you were if you were able to just sit down and think about each and every problem at hand, you would play a lot better. And it's the same in life, if you can just train yourself to be like, what is my opponent trying to do to me right now? Like, what opponent are we talking about? Like, whatever is going on in life. I woke up in a shitty mood this morning, and I linked my wrong YouTube account to my Streamlabs, and I was pissed. Like, it fucked up my whole morning, and I was like, you know what? You gotta keep going. Like, we all have shitty days. You gotta keep fucking going. Sometimes you get put in check. You didn't see it coming. You did not see that shit coming, but you just got put in check. And now you can panic, you can get mad, you can do whatever you need to do. But the reality is, motherfucker, you are still in check, and you have to make a move. Now, it doesn't matter if you fucking make a bad move. It doesn't matter if you make a fucking good move. But regardless, you have to make a move. Now, you have a choice. Are you going to make a good move, a bad move, an emotional move? I've been trying to really get back into chess again, step my elo up. I noticed the more that I play, the more I'm able to deal with bullshit that comes with life.
I could see that, man. Absolutely.
All right. This is interesting because the pawn's blocking here. My bishop's blocking this. I can take this because his rook can't take back, but his king can. Now, I could put my bishop here because his bishop can't take me because my rook would take his king. Another option would be to place my knight here, attacking this, which would be able to push that, then hit that, which would be checkmate. However, if I make this move next, my opponent will not only eat my bishop that was guarding this, attacking that, but then his knight is now attacking my knight. Interesting problem at hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I have to be forceful. So the way I force it, if I go here, he is forced at that point to either take back or move here. That's his only two moves. That is literally my opponent's only two moves. So let's say he takes. I can't do nothing with this because then the bishop's free to eat. Oh, he takes, and then I go knight to e5, check. So then he has to go back here, and then I go, let's see. He's here, there, I'm blocking this. It's this. This isn't here anymore. This is still here. This is there. I'll push the pawn, put him in check. He has to go over. Oh, man, I think that's right. Take, check. Fuck!
I don't know what happened, man.
I pushed the pawn to f7, but that's not what That's not what the game wanted me to do, so I didn't calculate it correctly. What did I miss? I mean, I figured here, because it's check, which forces you can just go forward.
Everything I pushed over here.
I didn't calculate like that.
I did a update on my graphics card. Now I'm able to actually download broadcast.
I almost calculated it right, but I just and that's the beauty about chess and life and problems. Just like you think you got it figured out, but you still didn't see 3 or 4 moves extra ahead that you were intended to see.
I mean, but that's the way it operates, isn't it, though?
Amen, brother. That's what makes it great. That's what makes it so imperative to have other people in your life that look at problems through different eyes, because you know, maybe you would have saw what I didn't see.
And vice versa, bro. Absolutely.
What I find the strangest is that sometimes that instillment of that voice comes from the strangest places that you never would have looked towards, especially when you become dependent upon having those outsources of people to be able to vent to or whatever, you know.
Right.
I know for me, the young Caleb, I thought I was teaching him something at one point, and when I reflected upon our relationship, I realized how much he taught me.
It's a good humbling experience, isn't it?
It is. It really is, because you know, that I've learned from you, whenever they give me the humbling line of, "Oh, you're pretty wise" or whatever, I'm like, I'm wise enough to know I don't know shit.
Fact, brother. It's a rough place to be, man, but I'd rather be there than convinced that I know things.
I believe that's the whole point in it, is like just to be man enough to be like, I think that I understand. However, I'm willing to hear your perspective, your steps in life, to see why you feel the way that you feel.
Right.
So, if you don't mind me asking, while we're here on Coffee and Chess episode 1 with my brother Boomer and Simo, how are you feeling and what are your thoughts towards... I was on TikTok the other day, okay? Let me set the backstory for you real quick, if you don't mind, brother. I was on TikTok the other day and I came across about 4 videos of what appeared to be American soldiers. Now, you do understand how the internet is. Obviously, people can display things that aren't true, but I'm telling you, from me being who I am, they appear to be legit American soldiers in bases with other soldiers, and they were saying that no matter if they were going to get released in a month or if they were, and I know I'm using the wrong terminology.
I know exactly where you're going with this too.
Please then continue with me then, because you know exactly what I'm going to say about the vaccine and the soldiers not being able to essentially have a choice. And we've spoke about how, you know, the military is essentially the only form of socialism that we have in America. And once you join, like, you no longer have that choice.
No, man. I mean, so like, and I was explaining that to, you bring this up, because I was explaining this to my dudes the other day, right? I was like, look.
For those of you guys that don't know, my brother Boomer is in the military. He is in charge of men and women, and this is why I asked him what's going on with this, because I really want to know, because from a civilian's perspective, it's fucked up. But as a civilian, we're so spoiled in our rights that we don't understand how much freedom that these men and women have actually given up to allow us to have the freedom. And I apologize for cutting my brother off, but I had to set that stage to allow you guys to know who is about to speak right now when he says I was talking to my guys about this.
No, you're good, brother. So like, you're right, man. When you sign the dotted line, man, you give up certain freedoms and you give up the ability to have a lot of choices. I mean, you're compensated for it, obviously, but at the end of the day, you make an acknowledgement like, hey, this is what I'm doing, right?
Yes, sir.
And if you disagree with it, as plenty of great leaders, you know, before me have said, you know, like, look, the military's not for everybody. If you can disagree with this, and that's fine, you know, like the Army's changing, right? Historically, you know, I would honestly say that the Army has been at the forefront of a lot of the cultural changes that we've experienced in our country, you know, as we've progressed through, you know, slavery, segregation, and all this other stuff that, I mean, obviously it's not unique to America, but within our ranks, you know, we've watched that social ladder climb from where we were to where we are now, right?
Yes, sir.
And with that, man, you'll see people that try to hold on to these historics as like, hey, this is where we need to be at, because this is what felt comfortable for me, you know, like their homeostasis is 10 years ago, whereas the world's evolved past them.
Right.
And plenty of great leaders say, look, if you can't figure that out, well, it's time to get out, man. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because, yes, the Army said this is mandated, right?
Yes, sir.
You are going to get this. And
Now,
regardless of your personal belief on it or not,
yes, sir.
or my personal belief on it, there's clear black and white that says, hey, man, this is what you have to do. And when I had this conversation with my guys, this is what I told them. I was like, look, my personal belief on things versus my professional belief on things are historically two different things, right? But what I will tell you is, if you feel the conviction that this is what you have to do is to get out, don't let anybody stop you. Always live life on your feet, you know what I mean? Because a king bows for nobody, and that's where we got to stay as men and women. You know, like, are you gonna sacrifice something? Well, shit, yeah, we sacrifice freedoms to join the military, right? We sacrifice our perspectives and our abilities to do a lot of things to join the military to do what we got to do, because at that time in our life we felt that was conviction, right?
Oof.
Now, if this conviction weighs heavier on you than this conviction, then I mean, how are you wrong? You know what I mean? As long as you stand on your feet and you do what you feel is right, and it's not messing with anybody else. Now, noted, some people are going to say, well, not getting the vaccine is going to mess with somebody else. And I'm honestly not intelligent enough to argue those specifics because I'm not a chemist, right? I didn't play with the vaccine. I didn't help do anything. I know people who went to college and do that as a profession, did all that stuff. And let those doctors have that conversation, because that's not me, right? But what I just try to keep it real with them and be like, hey, if this is what you want to do, then do that.
Right.
I got your back, regardless of whether you use it to get out of the military.
That's a leader.
Use it to, don't want to get it because you do feel righteous enough not to get it, or, are you plan on, changing your mind to get it? Whatever it is you plan on doing, just know that I understand. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing that we got to kind of relay to people. Like, just because you disagree with them doesn't mean you can't understand where they're coming from on it.
That's deep. That's very deep, because I was feeling the same way watching the divide between the left and the right, because all their points of views are valid. I mean, they are, but they're not a valid reason to hate the other person. They're not a valid enough reason to become this divisiveness that we've become over vaccines. I seen a fucking stupid ass meme this morning that said, dogs that don't get all their shots aren't allowed to hang out together. And it had like fucking 200 likes. He's far left or whatever, but it blows my mind that we're talking about this as if dogs and Americans and our rights are the same. Like, no one knows if I've ever been vaccinated from my flu shot. No one cares. People still come out and hang out with me, but now all of a sudden they're like this has literally been conversation between me and people in my family where they're like, when are you gonna get your second dose? And I'm like, I haven't got the first one. Right. And I'll leave it at that. Like, no big deal. Like, if you got it, awesome. I hope it works for you, because I haven't, and I've been going to work every single day around a bunch of guys that haven't got it. Just living life, like we are being precautious as far as we go into businesses if they require masks. I put my mask on. I still want to support my local businesses of America, and if that's what they're having to do because their local government's causing them to mandate me to wear a mask, I'm gonna do it. I mean, I'm not gonna be that guy.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I saw a quote the other day, right?
Okay.
And when you mentioned that, comparing people to dogs and whatnot, it reminded me of it. It's like education's not simply learning of what happened, to the beings of Jews. It's comprehending how all those Germans felt it was okay and how to prevent it, right? Because that's the purpose of learning about it, not to simply know the facts. When you watch people compare people to animals, you know what I mean? I mean, we're animals, right?
Right.
But like, we have etiquettes that differentiate us from, lions tearing each other apart, other animals in the animal kingdom tearing each other apart, even though we're pretty freaking good at doing it ourselves.
I was like, I suppose. I mean, our etiquettes are just written down, but we still go there. Like lions just don't acknowledge them. Like, they don't write them down, but like, they're acknowledged. They're like, you know what I'm saying? There's a reason why there's a king and the fucking pride of the fucking lion pack. You know what I mean? Like, how do you become the king, brother? You get challenged and you win.
Fair enough.
And to me, we're the same way. And to validate those reasons, I actually see it all the time. You know, if we as Americans were born over in the Taliban and over in Afghanistan and being part of the Taliban, and we believed what they believed, what is much different than what the common person here in America believes? I seen something you seen the mural where it's like all soldiers go to heaven? The statue, and it shows all the soldiers walking up into heaven.
Right.
Okay, so what's the difference in that and what they believe? You know, that they're going to heaven too. They're going to heaven too with their virgins. We believe that all our soldiers are going to heaven. Now I ask you, what's the difference between A and B? The only difference is there was a winner and a loser.
That's not true, man.
Okay, let's speak on it.
So here's why, right?
Okay.
So the question you asked explains why we've been in Afghanistan 20 years.
Okay.
Right. All these generals and all their intelligence can't watch a simple movie like V for Vendetta and figure out that at the end of the day you can't kill an idea, right?
You cannot kill an idea. Who said that?
So no matter how many people you kill, no matter how much you stomp it down, as long as the idea is there, it's gonna survive, right?
Right.
And that's literally why we've been there, because you can't untrain that either, because it's cultural.
Absolutely.
But as per figuring out who won and who lost, I mean, war doesn't determine who's right. War determines who's left, right? And I know it's a cheap kind of cliche quote, but at the end of the day, like, how do you really determine a winning factor in war, right? Did we have Americans die on American soil since 9/11? No. You know what I mean? Well, that's not true either.
I mean, we had
like Hassan
in Chattanooga. We had the soldiers that got killed.
But I mean, are you comparing? Is it appropriate to compare one for one when it comes to, you know? Okay, well, they killed a couple of our people. How many people of theirs did we kill, right? And then that's when you start getting into those deeper conversations, like what really determines like an actual dub. And if you really can't frame that criteria for an actual win, then you can't for a loss, right? The whole like up defines down, down defines up, beauty defines ugly, so on and so forth, right? So without that criteria and that metric, I mean, how do you really determine who actually won?
Right there, without that criteria and that metric. So in other words, the criteria would be a story, and the metric would be time. In other words, history. We're taught about it every day. You know, like when we were brought up, if someone were to ask you, describe Christopher Columbus to me, we would only be able to describe what our American education system taught us about Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
So in 100 years from now, and let's just say the Taliban no longer exists, or let's even say that America no longer exists. I don't care. Let's say whichever one you want to go down that rabbit hole. And 100 years from now, one of us don't exist because of where we were at 20 years ago, because of what we started 20 years ago. Let's just say. So whoever writes that history, whoever teaches that story to that current generation and the next generation, that's the truth. That's just what they're taught. Whether it's the truth of facts, because facts are his story. You know, once you determine in your brain that you are being taught facts, they become facts, whether they're lies or real.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. You seen, you know, we know about like the Babylonians and
well, we know what we've been told.
All those things, but how many cultures have been lost to history?
Correct. Exactly. Like okay, so as of right now, they said the Mayans were the first, and then they found bones from 10,000 years prior, or 7,000 years before the Mayans. So that marks it back 10,000 years before our time. So at what point were we here? And at what point was our history began to be written? And then at what point was our history no longer able to be interpreted? Which is where I'm starting to see is where we're really at, because that's where we're having a problem with that here in America right now with our education system. I don't really know what they're calling it now, but essentially the stuff that we just spoke about, where they're like, well, we're teaching kids about Columbus Day and Christopher Columbus. He was such a great guy. He came over here and discovered America. And they don't want that no more. They're like, well, this is what he actually did.
So America is rather large anyway.
And we're talking about the United States of America. When we say America,
I mean, fair
for
enough,
everyone
but, like,
around the world.
Well, and that's kind of like I think where the argument's at, right? Let me dial back the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, please.
You were talking about lions, right?
Yeah.
And, how do they figure out? And I'm gonna bring it in, and I'm gonna close the gap on this one. But so you said how do lions, how do they figure out that they're the top?
Right.
Lion, the pack leader, if you will.
Absolutely.
Power, right? And
define that power in the eyes of a lion.
Well, in the eyes of a lion,
like, is that
not a lion? But
exactly? So it's like.
But here's the thing, though. But that the lion is the pack leader when you look at him, right? And that's
because he's the only one there, correct?
What's up?
Because he is the only one there, correct? He's the last one standing, correct?
Well, yeah, but like comparing people to animals is also kind of where we started this, and how it's kind of a fallacy, right?
Well, I mean, because I look at it like
what we're looking at power, though, in essence of
yes, sir.
Like, so humans, right?
Yes, sir.
We understand power. We understand how to influence power and maintain power, and maintaining power, I think, is one of the largest things that kind of get us into this loop, right? Because people in power don't want to get away from power, right? Because power, absolutely. So, and why would they ever sacrifice what they're capable of just for somebody? And then, so when we're talking about education systems, right? And we're looking at the degradation, like what's the purpose of population in America? I mean, we can sit here and say, freedom and the ability to make a good life for our kids, and we have that capability. We're kind of unique. Even the poorest people in the United States of America are richer than 90% of the world, right?
Right.
Which is absolutely insane. And I've been to the parts of the world where you actually see how terrible it really is over there.
Whereas like nothing compared to even the worst parts of America.
Yeah, you could go down the street and the guy shaking his cup is actually gonna have stuff in there, right? Because people will actually give it to them, and they have the capability of giving it to them. I think capability is kind of a big thing with that. But when it comes towards power, man, like the reason why we can't commit suicide in America is because every person in the population, it calculates towards GDP, right? So everybody has a median income that they're calculated against when it comes to what America's worth, right? And the people in power don't want you to take away their ability to have that power, by having their GDP. So when it comes to education, right, why would those people in power empower you with the education you need to exceed their power, right?
Wow.
So instead of giving you those tools and that proper, education, all they need you to do is to be able to parrot. They need you to be able to sit there and hear, repeat, and do, right? Because that's how you train workers.
Exactly.
Which I think is another reason why they keep trying to pull people into like cities, right? How expensive is it to buy land out in the nothingness in America compared to what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right?
They were giving it away at one point.
All this,
just claim they were giving it away at one point. Just go claim it.
Right, but now the government, how much land does the government actually own itself?
I looked this up one point. What was it, like 29% or something outrageous?
There's a Google statistic out there, right? There's even a Google statistic of who's all the richest people in the world, and what's crazier to think is that there's actually people that aren't on that list because they paid not to be on it, and that's power.
Exactly, the people that we don't know about are the ones that really run it. The federal government owns about 640 million acres of land in the United States, about 28% of the total land area of 2.27 billion acres.
It's crazy, right?
28%, almost 30% belongs to our government, which supposedly is me and you. Supposedly, that government is me and you, but I don't believe that personally. But that's another podcast.
That's a different podcast. So what I'm trying not to like rabbit hole too far into this, right? Kind of the point of what I'm getting at is that's how you display power, though, right? You move people like you were playing chess, right?
Okay.
You slowly move those pieces on the board where you need them to capitalize the moves you need to make, right? And you outmaneuver your opponent by any means necessary. But unfortunately, when you deal with the levels of classism that we have in America, and people can argue all the other stuff all they want to, the Rossies and that, at the end of the day, if there's people that have achieved certain levels, then the levels of classism we see in America are not going to allow you, because people are playing checkers, and the people who own that power are playing chess.
Right.
And no matter how many moves you try to make to get onto that chessboard, if you're not
born
playing with the right pieces, you're not even going to be able to, right? And that's how you display ultimate power.
That's deep. So you believe that the people that are actually out there playing on the chessboards, or the ones that are actually in power, we don't even know who these people are.
I'm not saying shadow government or anything like that. Like I said, I'm not rabbit holing there. I think it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of faces out there that we can recognize, and it's probably folks that we do know of. And so I'm not saying, oh, the Freemasons, the Skull and Bones and all this stuff like that, because you know as well as I do, if it's a secret society, but you know their name, they're not secret.
Right. So my I was gonna try to go off on that, but try to back up out of the rabbit hole a little bit. What is the summit that these leaders speak at, where like world leaders come to, and people like Elon Musk are at, and
you're talking like the trilateral committees and all that,
right? And these are live, like
the bird groups.
We can watch these. There's videos of them, by the way, guys. There's literal YouTube videos of Elon Musk speaking at these places where he's essentially, they're asking him questions about the future, about robots. And Elon was speaking, he said that he felt like technology had already it's already gone past the point of no return. So it's already in the hands of people that are able to continue to develop it, no matter how far developed somebody else is.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it here today with, we're from a generation where when we talk about graphics cards, we were playing on Atari. There were little pixels on our screen. There was about 12 pixels, and that was the whole game. And now where we're at, literally 25 years later, maybe a little bit longer, but I guess it's been about 35 years later, huh? Now where we're at now, we have enough pixels in one home than at the time the whole world had with like their Nintendos combined. Just staring at our televisions right now and staring at our telephones right now. Didn't Nostradamus predict that one day we will all be connected through some type of web?
I'm not so sure about him, but I know for absolute surety that George Orwell did.
The 1988, 1980, what is it? What's the title?
1984.
1984 Animal Farm.
He also wrote Animal Farm, and then you also have like the writers like Ayn Rand.
Right.
She kind of.
Have you read any of these books more than once?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I quote them kind of often just to mess with people. When you start seeing a couple things out there and you're like, oh no, we've always been at war with Oceania.
Good old Coffee and Chess. And I truly hope everyone's enjoyed Coffee and Chess episode 1 with my brother and myself. And I hope we're able to do this more often. And the more you guys interact with us and vibe with us and chill with us, we're able to interact with you guys and produce better and more content for you guys. And let's just grow this community, man. As you can see, we're just men that have an opinion about things. That's all it is. And even though our baseless opinion is that we have none, like we feel the way we feel just like everyone else does. The main thing is to treat each other accordingly based upon those factors. There's no reason to treat each other any different because of anything that the other person believes in. Like it's silly, it's stupid. We're beyond this. We're better than this, man. You see too many good stories in the world to not know that the world there's far more better and there's far more good out there than there are evil and everything, man. And I just truly believe that in my heart. It's been a blessing to be able to do this, man. It's been a blessing to be able to do everything that I've been able to do in life. It's